Hey everyone, welcome back to another lesson here on the channel. Today we're going to be tying the Dirty Hoh. Awesome steelhead fly, potentially the coolest leech pattern I've ever seen, tied by Jerry French. So all we've got set up here is a 25mm OPST steelhead shank with a brass cone on there in the color copper. So we're going to start by attaching our thread, of course. And then we're going to go ahead and we are going to attach 65-pound Stren braid. The reason that I use this Superline 65-pound versus something like a 50-pound Power Pro is that I find that it hooks itself less. One problem I have with a lot of leeches is they like to hook themselves. So I like to use the heaviest braid possible. And sometimes I'll even tie them just on tubes so that I can have a, a little trailing hook just coming straight off some mono. Fold your braid in half, and then this is essentially going to be the length of the fly right on top. Boom, boom. I do this a bit differently. I do it right here. So you're going to put this up through the cone, and I find that I can get it to come out just fine, assuming you're using a big enough cone. If that thing's super snug, so feel free to do this off the vise, but I actually think it's easier this way. Through the top of the cone, through the eye, and then do your final length adjustment. And a little bit longer. It's winter. I'm feeling like I want to fish something a little bit bigger. Back through the front of the cone. If you just push it off to one side, you'll be able to find plenty of space to push it through. Just like that. So, not tough at all. It used to be one of my least favorite parts about tying patterns like this, and now that I kind of know that method, super easy. I just keep it right on the vise. So now we are going to tie on our rabbit strip. I'm using a crawfish orange, straight cut rabbit strip. So tip, if your rabbit strip is kind of unruly, if you can't get a nice straight piece out of it, just grab both ends of it and just pull it. It'll straighten it right out. See how it's just sitting completely straight now. 1/2 inch longer than the braid, so we have some room to play around with and add a hook back there. Just move some of that hair forward. There we go. We are going to cut that off. Secure it down. And I like to just look from all angles, make sure everything's lined up perfectly, and that looks really good to me. So now we're going to start the composite loop, the first one. Composite loop is just a fancy way of saying putting materials into a dubbing loop, multiple materials at a time. So more than just dubbing. So what we're going to do is we're going to tie a 3-inch dubbing loop, and then into that is going to go pink ice stub. As always, just organize the material, pull it out, get all the fibers lined up. Might as well make sure that everything you put in there is actually going to stay in there. Dubbing wax, that's going in the loop. Now you could put a little bit of angel hair, anything. Have fun with the synthetic stuff. And we're going to go change it up. We're going to go orange fusion dub, same amount give or take. Pull that apart. This stuff's already lined up pretty well in the bag. Take half of it, put it to the side. Also goes to the side in a separate pile. So I've just split that total amount in half. And then we're going to grab polar flash. So we got about that much. I don't know if that's translating. That much. Very good instructional video. What is that? 30 fibers? I don't know. We're going to cut that 1.5 inches long. I tend to like tying sparse. I go sparse. I use probably half of what I've laid that material on top of the other half of this. I'm going to close that onto the top of it. So all I've done there is I've made a sandwich, essentially, with the polar flash in the middle between two dubbing pancakes. Well, I said it's a sandwich. I guess that would be the bread. And now I'm going to lay that in the loop offset. And I'll show you what I mean by that in a second. Or off center. So when I hold that up, you can see this side is longer than this side, and that's on purpose. So Jerry French calls that like 60-40 when he lays it down. Yeah, that way you don't have all the fibers ending at the same spot. Much more natural looking. Again, just one finger at the base, OPST dubbing tool in, and then wire brush time. And these synthetic materials and dubbing, they're pretty sturdy, so you can really get in there and pick everything out. Take a little bit of water on your fingers and brush this all back one direction. And then we're gonna hold that and start wrapping it. So one wrap right in front of the next. We do not need to go over one spot. We're not making a dubbing ball. We're just going one in front of the last. And this absolutely lights up and glows underwater. This specific combination of materials, by the time you're done, you have polar flash, you have, ice dub, you've got predator wrap. I mean, it's insane. It's the coolest looking leech I've ever seen. I lost an absolute tank of a steelhead, native steelhead, on a small Pacific Northwest river using a Dirty Hoh. It's like probably one of my favorite battles in my memory. And then we're gonna go in this time, you use the same brush, and just brush it forward and then back. Just releases trapped materials, starts shaping the shoulder, the belly. So already, I mean, if you were to push that cone back and end the fly right now, you'd have an awesome looking leech. But we've got more to go still, believe it or not. We're kind of just getting started. So we're gonna put on barred crusher legs, 2, these are orange, 2 full length. Split your thread, not split it, but just, create a V shape on your thread with those legs. And then we're gonna pull that tight on the underside of the fly. We are gonna do the same thing over here. Feel free, by the way, to use 2 different colored legs. We have 4 on each side. Do 2 orange and 2 pink or something. So once you've split them, pull them back, make sure they're still holding down, and catch them. Make sure they're sitting snug in there. And then what I like to do while they're all hanging down like this, it makes it super easy. Go in and cut 2 of them to 2/3 length from each side. So you're gonna have 2 long ones on each side and then 2 2/3 at each side. And naturally, they'll all technically be slightly different from each other, which is cool. Now, we're gonna tie in 2 epic long pieces of jungle cock as the eyes. This is the real deal. Feel free to use synthetic. So you wanna take the curve and make sure that it's pointing down. You don't want something like that. So actually hug the body of the fly, and it'll come back to beyond any of the materials we currently have tied in or are going to tie in. So it'll stand out. 3 wraps in. Turn it, just look from my angle. Looks awesome. We're gonna go other side. Same thing. Fluff comes off. I'll lay this down. If they're slightly different lengths, so this one on the side is shorter, so I'm just gonna make them somewhat close. And you could do that because we're not going crazy with our wraps by just pulling on the one that's longer, the stem, leave the stem out. And because it's so easy to do that, it's probably easy to pull out the other way too. So fold the stem back, capture it twice, and do the same on both sides. That will make sure that your jungle cock never slips, changes positions, or comes off the fly altogether. Stem of the jungle cock gets cut. It's now facing towards the back of the fly, and that is killer. Rubber legs, we're gonna trap them up top. So now we're gonna be grabbing some purple ice dub. Again, pulling it apart, laying it back on top of itself. I've got a bunch of different colors of predator wrap. I'm gonna go, let's do purple. We got purple dub, purple predator wrap. Now this stuff can be, intimidating to work with. So what you do is it comes on this thread, cut an inch of that thread. So just cutting off that thread. I had already used this stuff's usually long. You won't be cutting this thread off right when you start this, but I had a patch that I already used a bunch of, so we have almost the perfect amount right here. It's just about an inch and a quarter long. Polar flash, just lay it on top of your dubbing loop. Sorry, not your dubbing loop, your dubbing. Misspeaking left and right here. We're going back to pink. lay it on top of itself, pull it apart, keep half. You're gonna close in the ostrich that goes into the forward hackle. Now, one tip I do have, let me explain this. That's how large your, I should say, dubbing pile is. It's about 1.5 inches long, and it is about 1 inch wide. Cut it down to 3/4 of an inch wide on this section of the dubbing, and do that on both of them, because what that's going to do is it's going to let the ostrich fibers that you're laying on top of that shine. So it's not going to clump up all the way down that awesome ostrich. You just want to basically have a little bit of coverage at the base of it. So speaking of ostrich, that stuff down there is totally long enough to use. Grab it by the tips. So now you have the flat ends. Lay that down on top of that pile of dubbing that we made. And then we're going to grab the stuff from the other side and just finish that. So what you're going to end up with is about 1.5 inches, well, the full length of the dubbing that I just showed you, with ostrich fibers coming off the end of it. Now, take the other half that we didn't use yet, lay it on top of that, right at the base of those fibers. That basically, like we said, closes it in like a sandwich. So now what we can do is we can take our low tack wax, rub it on the dubbing loop, throw in our purple dubbing with the predator flash first, then throw in the ostrich, and that's pretty stable. You could pick it up and hold it, and that dubbing is going to keep all of the ostrich in order. Just trap that, and then you could play around with the length of stuff after. I like to, just by eye right now, pull all of those fibers so that they're much closer to the dubbing loop. So you don't have the side you're not going to be using sticking super far out the other way. And then if you have any pieces that are not equal, this is a good time to even them out. Let's go for this crazy Senyo's laser red dub. And again, we're just going to take the smallest amount of that stuff, catch the loop by the base, and then support it with your index finger. And we're going to go in with a bodkin and arrange everything so that the fibers are spread out a little bit more. And then we're going to take our scissors, hopefully y'all can see this, and cut down as close as we can get to the loop. Cut off the ends of the ostrich. So basically what we've done is that. I'm going to push everything together. Boom. We're spinning this thing. So time for the good part. The ostrich, I like to be a little bit nicer too. It's not this crazy strong synthetic stuff. It is really strong as far as fibers go. Brushed that out. And I will switch brushes for the dubbing. I'll go back to the wire. I think it grabs the fibers in the dubbing a lot better. And we're going to grab all of this and pull it back one direction. Now that it's all seized back, we're going to start, and then just watch it as you're spinning it forward come together into this super cool shoulder and then forward hackle all at the same time. Is one of the things that makes it such an enjoyable fly to tie. You'll see for yourself when you put this in the water how cool it is there as well. So now we're pulling up under that cone. So every time I come around, I just make sure that I'm not trapping anything in a weird way. And then here, you could see what the point of that red is. It's the final thing you see before the cone. So I'm going to go around that 3 times. Then I'm going to spin around it twice and pull that up inside of there. and then that's never going anywhere. So I'll cut below the cone. Now we are going in to whip finish. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 again. Pull that tight. Wiggle it both ways. Make sure everything's snug. And we're gonna trim this. Boom. Going in with a brush. And now we're gonna brush everything forward. The shoulder comes forward, which is consisting of that purple ice dub, purple predator wrap. So we're brushing this forward. Yeah, you can see as I'm rotating this in the light, there is no shortage of flash on this fly. And that thing's starting to look really cool. Now what we're gonna do is take it out of the vise. Pretty cool looking fly. Take everything and brush it forward. Tail goes back. Only thing you're not pushing back is the jungle cock, the braid. And I'm gonna put my hook onto it. And the way that I'm gonna put my hook onto it is I'm going to cross through the hook, so loop over the hook, one turn into the loop. I'm trying to make sure I do this slow and explain it well. Come back. Now the loop's facing the other direction, facing behind the hook, away from the rabbit strip. One more turn again. Come forward and over. And then what we're gonna do, well, first of all, here's how you know if you did it right. Your hook point facing the rabbit strip. The loop is facing the rabbit strip. Take your rabbit strip and thread it through that loop. Get the hairs out of the way so you're not trapping those. Pull slowly on this. Make sure we're keeping everything in line. And then before I fully cinch it, I'm going to, see how we trapped some of that hair down. I'm going to grab a bodkin, push it into that hair, and just pull that back out. Now we've attached the hook, and that hook is going to ride up. Now, that's a hook guard right there. So what we want to do is we want to cut our rabbit strip. It's like this, right below that hook point. So what we're going to end up with, something like this. So now, that can never hook that, right? It's impossible, just like that. So fish grabs it, boom. That's it, Dirty Hoh. Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe for more steelhead fly tying tutorials and more on the water steelhead fly fishing. So I'll see you around. Thanks so much. Later.